Apple has released a lot of really revolutionary computers using the G3 processor, many focusing on striking design and usability in the face of a sea of beige boxes from the competition. However, I have a huge soft spot for one specific G3, which honestly is my absolute favorite one, the Beige G3 desktop. And you know what's better than a Beige G3 desktop? Two Beige G3 desktops. So today, let's see if we can't upgrade the absolute bejesus out of these, and maybe even hit the holy grail, a G4 processor in a Beige G3 desktop. So I've always wanted a Beige G3 desktop, but I've never actually owned one. I've had the G3 Tower, but I don't think that's special in the same way that this desktop is. You see, the desktop form factor is absolutely iconic for 90s era computers, but they fell out of favor at the end of the 90s, and you hardly ever saw any of these entering the 2000s. Everyone basically switched to tower cases, which were far more expandable, and the casual shopper at least seemed much more powerful than their desktop counterparts, even if the specs were the same, because obviously bigger must be better. So the Beige G3 desktop is actually the very last desktop form factor that Apple ever built. And if you know me, you'll know that I'm absolutely obsessed with the lasts of things. Now, I don't class something like the Mac Mini as a desktop because a desktop is something very specific. It's meant to sit under and hold a computer monitor placed on top of it. And back in the day, those were going to be huge, heavy CRT monitors. So given that I wanted to get a nice working Beige G3 desktop, I did the sensible thing. I bought a mostly working G3 desktop and a second untested as is, which is usually code for definitely tested and does not work, and I would just use that one for parts. So imagine my surprise when they both got here and they both work. So let me just show you why they thought this one didn't work, because it's actually kind of funny. So let me take the lid off and show you what I found. So here's the computer that the seller said was untested as is for parts. And if you push the power button when it's plugged in, nothing happens, but you can also see that it's a little bit loose. So let's pop this cover off and take a look inside. Yeah, so take a look at that. That's actually the power button just broken off inside. And they tried to glue it back on, but I guess it didn't hold because it was just loose in there and not behind the plastic button. But if you plug the computer in and have it open and just press this button, it starts up just fine. So the first thing I'd like to do is kind of combine these two into the best possible G3 desktop. And the motherboards don't really matter because they both work and we're just going to upgrade the processors anyway. So I'm going to take whichever of these cases is the best structurally and move all of the good parts from one to the other. And then probably just make sure it has the best top case. Like this one's all nice and this one's kind of yellow and terrible. And this one has a zip drive, so that'll be going into whichever is the best. And this one has the Wings AV card, which has the audio-visual capture card, so that's going to go into the best one of these. So let's take these two apart and compare them. So I had a bit of a spoiler in that I did actually take these two apart when they first got here just to check for damage. And this one, unfortunately, got a bit smushed in shipping. So it has some broken plastic on it. The awesome little kickstand here was broken off. And the other thing about this machine is it doesn't quite close correctly. That's broken. But I think the issue is they didn't use the right size memory in here, which means that the case can't close right, and I think that's throwing the whole case out of whack. These actually need to be low profile DIMMs, and they can't be taller than a little over an inch. So 1.15 inches is the maximum height, and if you're taller than that, the top of this case actually rests on top of those memory sticks, and that's not good. But this case, on the other hand, it's actually in very good condition. It's structurally sound, very little plastic is broken on it, and it closes quite nicely. So I think what we're going to do is use the nice top cover from this system and this zip drive and merge those into this system, and then try to upgrade this one to a G4 first. Okay, so let's start by taking apart the machine that got a little bit smushed in shipping here. And we can even see over here where the metal casing doesn't quite line up with the plastic back of the case, but they are completely out of alignment and just won't sit together correctly, and I think this whole case is just kind of bent. So let's take what we want out of this machine and swap it on over to the better case. And this 23-year-old plastic is just so incredibly brittle. I literally just snapped these two tabs off with almost no force at all. I do love how easy and pleasant this machine is to work on though. It's just so well laid out and modular, and a lot of thought went into how it comes apart. And 23-year-old brittle plastic aside, I think it's one of the best things about this era of old Macs. All of these drives have nice little locking tabs, and there's no screws. They just pull right out on these little plastic dolly sled things. And I mean, I'm being very careful with it because it's so easy to break this stuff now, but when it was new, it was really easily serviceable. So here's our zip drive, and hopefully it works. And I'm also going to take this CD-ROM out of here because I did try the CD in the other machine and it makes horrible noises. And again, I'm being super careful with these little tabs. So instead of pushing up and pulling out on the tab itself, I'm trying to push up from the bottom with a plastic tool so I don't crack it, which is a little more awkward, but the plastic underneath here on the actual locking tab itself is much thicker. Alright, and there's our drives out with no cracked plastic. And then while I'm in here, I'll use this opportunity to pull this old PRAM battery out before it has a chance to start leaking everywhere, since we will want to upgrade this board too at some point in the future. Alright, so here's the better of the two machines. And the first thing I'll do on this one too is swap in a new PRAM battery, since I'm sure that this one is original too. So we'll just open up the case, and I really love this kickstand thing. So I hope it survives me actually using it. And of course the battery is located directly underneath the personality card here. So we'll have to pull this card out to change it, which is actually 3 screws. There's your standard 2 screws up here on the top. And then there's also one hiding on the back. So here is our Wings personality card, which uses a modified version of Apple's COM slot 2, which is unique to just these Power Mac Beige G3s and the all-in-one. Alright, so let's pop this battery out of here and swap in our brand new one. And then we'll just stick our personality card back in here. All right, next let's upgrade this memory. And I've got 3 low profile 256 megabyte PC100 DIMMs, which should hopefully bring us up to the maximum of 768 megs of RAM that this machine can handle. And the other thing I want to do right now is upgrade the video card a bit with this ATI Rage 128 PCI video card that came out of a blue and white G3. And that's going to give us a VGA out, which is very handy for our modern monitor. And funny enough, it doesn't seem to sit right, and the screw hole doesn't quite line up with the notch on the video card, so I wonder if this case is actually a little bit bent. Because it also looks like this Ethernet card is a little bit askew as well. So I hope this case is all right. Okay, let's install those drives. So we're going to need to lose this original horrible metal faceplate, which is one big solid piece that is just waiting to try to cut my fingers off. And man, this plastic is just so unbelievably fragile. Every time I move it, I just hear it creak a little bit, and I'm just so terrified that I am going to crack it. And so far, I've only cracked stuff on the worst of the two cases, so I'm really hoping I don't break anything on this one. Alright, so here is this horrible noisy 24-speed Apple CD-ROM successfully removed, and I didn't crack the caddy. And we will replace it with this somewhat quieter Apple 24-speed CD-ROM. So annoyingly, in order to hook up the zip drive, I did need to pull this cable from the other case. And in order to route it properly, you have to actually remove the power supply here. And this cable kind of hooks in behind it. But fortunately, the power supply has only one screw you have to remove to get it out. And then the whole unit kind of slides forward. And it's not that bad, but still kind of annoying. And yeah, all that effort just to get this cable into that one little hook there so it lays flat next to the power supply. And man, I really do hate putting these shields back on. They're a pain to get off, and they are like impossible to get back on. Alright, so I've got everything back together and connected, and man, it looks pretty good. With this nice monitor now plugged into the Rage 128 card on VGA. So let's hit the power button and see if this thing explodes. Well, I guess a random blank box is better than exploding. Alright, so now I'm holding down Shift to start with extensions off. And we'll see if we get that weird blank white box again or some other error. And if we do, I guess we'll try to clear PRAM or something. All right, bus error. At least it's telling us something this time. And I think this means I should try to reseat all of the cards and stuff. All right, so that worked. I opened it up, I reseated all the cards, and actually through that finagling, the case kind of snapped back into place, and now the cards line up with the holes in the back of the case, and I could screw them in correctly, and it boots right up. Here we are in macOS 9.2. So I guess next, let's see if it's actually recognizing all that new memory we put in. All right, let's check about this computer, and do we have our full 768 megs of RAM? And no. We don't, for some reason. We only have 384 megs. So I guess that means it's only seeing half of each of those three memory sticks. So there are 256 sticks, and it's only seeing 128 megs of each. That would mean, or that would make 384. So I don't know what's up with that. All right, so maybe something's wrong with our memory, but let's check something else. Let's see if a zip disk works in our new zip drive. So the zip drive doesn't work. It just made a horrible noise and never mounted, and I actually had to take the cover off of the computer to put a paper clip in there to manually eject it. So, if we take stock of our upgrade right now, we have a malfunctioning zip drive, only half of our memory is actually being recognized. But hey, at least it looks nice. So I think we'll call part 1 here. And next week in part 2, we'll see if we can figure out what's wrong with the memory, and then also install the G4 processor. And with our luck, it will work first try, I'm sure. So thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe, and I will see you next time.